When I get my hands on gorgeous fresh seafood just like this, I can't help myself. I have to make a classic French seafood stew. Now there's a few steps to this, but the results are fantastic. I've prepared my seafood and I've also reserved all of the shells from the prawns. The shell heads, the tails. There is so much flavour in these shells, and this is going to be the base of the stew. It's essentially like a soup, a flavoured soup like a bouillabaisse. So you want to use a multi-pan for this. This is a favourite of mine at the moment because it's got a flat base, but it's also quite deep. So it not only sautés everything quite well because there's lots of space, but because of those high sides, we can cook this soup and get a lot of ingredients into our multi-pan. So in with some olive oil, a small amount. And I've been preheating this pan and I know it's really hot because of that thermo signal. It's a solid red colour. And in with the shells. And hear that? That's a good sizzle. We want that sizzle because we really want to caramelise the shells to extract as much flavour as possible from them. Always have a bit of a wooden spoon on standby, even a rolling pin, just to crush those shells. Again, we're trying to get as much flavour out of them as possible. And because that pan is so hot, they change colour straight away. In with some onion, so just a small onion, give that a stir. And also a great base to a stew like this is some fennel because fennel goes so well with seafood. I've also got a bouquet garni, which is a combination of bay leaves, thyme and some parsley. Another little toss. And carrot. This is quite a large carrot, so I'll probably just use half of it. I'm just going to cut them into rounds. This is all going to be blended and then strained, so the chop doesn't have to be perfect at all. Okay. Pop that in. I like the carrot because it also gives it a slight sweetness and a beautiful colour. Okay, once everything's starting to caramelise, as it is now, we'll add some Pernod. Now this is a very classic anise style liqueur and it's great for recipes like this. Usually you flambe it, but if your pan is as hot as mine, a lot of the alcohol will evaporate straight away. So in with that, and the smell. Oh, it just reminds me of the south of France. I just love this. Tomato paste next, about a tablespoon. And we'll just stir that in. Whenever you're using tomato paste, you do want to cook it off slightly before the next ingredient. Some white wine, a splash. And finally, some stock. Now you can use chicken stock. It still will have a beautiful seafood flavour, but if you can get your hands on seafood stock, I'd highly recommend using seafood stock. Make it yourself too. This now comes to the boil, then I'll turn it down. It's going to cook for about 30 minutes. After that, I place it in a blender and blend it until it's smooth, shells and all. Then I'll strain it and we'll get a beautiful fine soup. Stew base is ready to go. So now onto the rouille, which is essentially a mayonnaise that has some saffron through it. So in my bowl, I have 2 egg yolks, a little garlic, Dijon mustard, and some saffron, and that gives it that beautiful, distinct colour of a rouille, which does have that saffron in it, so it's going to be really bright orange colour. Give that a whisk. Could add a pinch of salt if you like. And just like any emulsification, you want to start adding the oil little by little. So a few drops of some light extra virgin olive oil, mix it in, a little more, and a little more. So you just keep doing this, and as soon as this starts to thicken up, then you can add a steady stream of the oil. Perfect. See how thick and glossy that is? And just for some extra colour, I love the addition of paprika, just a small amount. Okay, for a little zing, some lemon, and that is our gorgeous rouille ready to go. All right, back over to this beautiful soup base. It is smelling so good, and it is really important to strain it. So we've got a gorgeous glossy soup just like this. So essentially this is a soup base, but I like to call it a stew because once you add all of the ingredients to it, it does become rich, thick and hearty. So this has just come back up to the simmer. I'm going to add some potatoes now. These are Kipfler potatoes and I've just placed them into some cold water and then brought them up to the boil and cooked them until they're tender. So I'm adding them now. It's also going to thicken up that gorgeous base. And for the seafood, geez, I've been spoilt here with lots of fantastic options. So everything takes different times to cook. I like to start with the prawns. They're going to take the longest, so they can go in now. Along with some blue eye, you can use any white fish you like. And essentially we're just poaching the fish and the potatoes together and just warming everything together. You can imagine this is already full of flavour, but then you add all this seafood and it's going to be even more intense. Next are the scallops. Look how fat these scallops are. They are just gorgeous. The roe's been removed and they're the second last piece of seafood to go in. And we'll just give the pan a bit of a jiggle so they're all covered. And lastly, some vongole or some pippies. Look how little they are, they're gorgeous. And as soon as we add them, they're also going to release some of the salty liquid. So you may have noticed I haven't added any salt to this yet. I want to taste it at the end. If it needs some, I'll add it. Grab a spoon and we'll just really gently push everything together. Now because it's quite hot in there, take no time at all to cook. Gives me enough time to prepare our little gorgeous toast to go with it. So I've just got some baguette here that I've toasted earlier. You want it to be really crunchy to serve with this soup. So nice long pieces like this. And we'll take the whisk out. Just use a palette knife or just a classic knife. And we'll grab our hui and place that onto our baguette. Now, of course, you can leave this step out and just serve it with the baguette because there's still so much flavour in that soup. But I just think this is a real classic extra touch. All right, don't overcook the seafood. It takes no time at all. You'll know it's cooked because you'll see some of these pippies open up, the fish is flaking away, and those prawns, they've changed, they're beautiful and pink. We'll turn the heat off. Let's serve this mammoth of a stew. So we'll grab a ladle. I'll add a potato. I'm just going to add one potato because I want it to be really all about that glorious seafood. Some prawns and the scallops, and then a generous ladleful of that beautiful soup over the top. Look at that colour. You know this is going to be good. Finally, we'll add a little toast on the side, and we need a pop of green, so some parsley. You can chop it, or I'm just going to pick it and just put a few leaves over the top. If you're a seafood lover just like me, then this seafood stew is for you.